Al Jazeera podcasts.
Today, Trump's base is split on whether the U.S. should strike Iran.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
The rift has left even Trump fumbling over what comes next. Is he being dragged somewhere he doesn't want to go? And by who? I'm Manuel Rapalo, and this is The Take.
My name's Harb. I am a reporter for Al Jazeera English, based here in Washington, D.C., where I cover U.S. foreign policy and American politics.
Harb, welcome back to The Take. It's nice to see you. Ali, we're talking on Thursday morning. It's been almost a week now since Israel attacked Iran unprovoked. And now we're seeing this sort of meltdown taking place here in the United States within President Donald Trump's political base, the Make America Great Again movement, otherwise known as MAGA. This is a rift over how Trump should respond. And maybe the most telling representation of this feud that we're watching play out in real time is a clip that's gone viral between former Fox News host Tucker Carlson and United States Senator Ted Cruz arguing about it.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant?
And I mean, Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz tend to be on the same page over a lot of things. So what's going on here? Can you break down this divide that's happening, that we're all seeing play out within the MAGA movement?
Basically, this divide goes back to the aftermath of the two disastrous wars that the United States launched in 2001 and 2003 in Afghanistan and Iraq, respectively. In the early 2000s, the Republican Party was unanimous in support for military foreign interventions under President George W. Bush. But as these wars turned out to be clear catastrophes, both for global security and for U.S. interests, there was a lot of discontent and a lot of anger across the political spectrum amongst average Americans. In comes Donald Trump to seize on this anger and to rebrand the Republican Party as the party of peace, as the party that will put America first. And putting America first means we're not going to go to these foreign wars. We're not going to go build other countries. We're going to defend our borders.
Really, the plan is to get out of endless wars, to bring our soldiers back home, to not be policing agents all over the world.
His view, or at least the view that he purports to have, is that it's an internal looking America that's looking after its own interests first and foremost. And during the second re-election campaign, he really drove home that message of America first, global peace,
no foreign wars.
No foreign wars. I'm against the warmongers. And large segments of his base believed it. So as the tensions started to build up around Israel looking ready to attack Iran, some people from the MAGA base, Tucker Carlson being the most, I would say, outspoken, visible, and perhaps influential in that sphere, but also many members of Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, far-right congresswoman, allied with Trump, Rand Paul, the sort of libertarian wing of the party, they've come up and said, this is not our war. We shouldn't be going to war for Israel, for any other country. We should be looking after our own interests. This is what we voted for here in the United States.
And some of these names that you just listed are some of the biggest supporters, loudest and most influential supporters of President Donald Trump that are now opposing any sort of foreign intervention. Yeah.
Yes, and I will add, Steve Bannon has been critical.
Why do we have to clean up your mess? Oh, because it's going to hit, a ballistic missile is going to hit San Francisco. That's not going to happen, and everybody knows it's not going to happen. That's just fear-mongering.
Steve Bannon was such an influential figure in the early days of the first Trump presidency.
We should note here, though, Ali, right, because this is This is the side of the MAGA movement that is saying, wait, let's stay back. Let's reconsider what's going on here within the MAGA movement. But then there's another side, a more hawkish side of the MAGA movement. Can you talk about that? Some of the figures like U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, United States Senator Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina Senator.
As we started the conversation, this is still George W. Bush's Republican Party, right? Like the people who were there for the aftermath of the so-called war on terror and who defended and supported the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, they're still there. So Trump came and sort of had a hostile takeover of the Republican Party from the outside, but that party in its composition did not disintegrate. There are still figures like Lindsey Graham who have been just advocating so staunchly for bombing Iran for years.
Israel has done an amazing job. They control the skies. We have one facility. It would be hard for Israel to hit without our help. We'll see what the president does.
There's also another element here, which is the power of the Israel lobby of the United States. AIPAC is lobbying lawmakers to support Israel the night that Israel attacked Iran. There were almost verbatim messages by Republican lawmakers. Please join me in prayer for Israel. And AIPAC would reshare these statements on its social media accounts. It was pretty eerie when you see it's the same message repeated over and over again. The Republican Party has a large evangelical Christian Zionist base that supports Israel for theological reasons, that says we need to defend Israel at all costs. So there is a mini civil war happening in the Republican Party.
It's interesting what you're saying here, because for the past few weeks, President Trump has been talking diplomacy, even as recent as the last few weeks, sticking to that anti-war, deal maker, peacemaker image that he's often tried to portray, dating back to when he first entered the political stage during the 2016 election.
I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right. That's the version of President Donald Trump that figures like former Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, that they back. This America first, no foreign wars image. But on Tuesday, President Trump really shifted that narrative, that tone. He said on social media, quote, "We now have complete control of the skies over Iran," end quote. President Trump even suggested that the U.S. could kill Iran's supreme leader. Is this a sign that President Trump is now being swayed more by those more hawkish elements of Make America Great Again movement and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Absolutely. I mean, it's important to note that by the time of this recording, the United States has not directly attacked Iran publicly. But when Trump says we have control over Iran's airspace, who is we? Is he considering Israel to be a branch of the U.S. military? Is he suggesting that the U.S. is already involved? Is he suggesting that Israel has done sort of the dirty work of taking out the air defenses and now the United States could waltz and bomb Iran? Certainly, Trump appears to be employing increasingly belligerent and bellicose rhetoric towards Iran. And we don't know yet what his decision will be, but he's not still looking for a diplomatic solution. He's looking for a total surrender under the threat of military force, and he is ready to strike Iran. So that does suggest that the hawkish voices are winning.
But it doesn't mean that the other voices aren't also pulling him in a different direction, right? President Trump is being pulled in these different directions.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to put you in a situation where you have to speculate, but what does Donald Trump want?
That's a very difficult question. I think Donald Trump ultimately wants a lasting legacy of a great leader, and be it a wartime leader or a peacetime leader, right? Initially, there was consensus almost that Donald Trump's ultimate goal is to win a Nobel Peace Prize. And we don't know what happened, but there is evidence to suggest that he at least yellow lighted, if not green lighted, the Israeli strikes, right? And the Americans tried to distance themselves initially. The next day, after the Israeli strikes appeared to be a resounding success, they killed several Iranian top generals. They killed a close advisor to the Iranian supreme leader, who, by the way, was a chief negotiator. Trump couldn't but claim the credit, couldn't but say, like, these are our weapons and we warned you. And it seems now he's torn, as you said. He's being pulled in the direction that he campaigned on no wars, but the war is already happening, and he's facing a lot of pressure to enter the fray.
More with Ali after the break. So, Ali, this stuff about knowing the whereabouts of Iran's supreme leader, having complete control over the skies of Iran, it sounds like President Trump is saying that the United States is already involved, when we know that only the U.S. Congress has the legal authority to declare war on another country. But we also know that that sort of political philosophy that, well, enshrined in constitutional law here in the United States has been ignored and sidestepped before. You have to admit that the vibe is eerily similar to 2003, when then U.S. President George W. Bush was galvanizing support here domestically and internationally for a U.S. war against Iraq.
Absolutely. The parallels are many, right? Let's start with Israel's rationale for attacking Iran without provocation. Israel has said that these are preemptive strikes, that we're attacking Iran because Iran could maybe have a weapon one day that could be used to attack us, so we're going to attack them first. This is exactly the logic that Bush had when he invaded Iraq.
And this much is certain. No terrorist network will gain weapons of mass destruction from the Iraqi regime, because the regime is no more.
We're also seeing the way that a lot of media outlets are drumming up for war. You cannot turn on American cable television without seeing some current or former Israeli official making the case for war, including suspected war criminals. So there are all these parallels, but there are also key differences. The main one being there isn't the kind of popular support for war that existed in the early 2000s in the aftermath of 9/11. The United States has not been attacked. The American public is not traumatized and itching to respond to someone as it was back then. In fact, the American public is sick and tired and weary of war, and poll after poll shows it. But I would say that attacking Iran now by Trump would be an even more preposterous, because the political vibe at home is not there to propel the United States towards war.
This notion that Iran is inching closer to a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon, is something that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been putting forward for the past 30 years.
If this regime or its despotic neighbor Iraq were to acquire nuclear weapons, this could presage catastrophic consequences, not only for my country and not only for the Middle East, but for all of mankind.
Iran has violated its solemn promise under the UN Security Council not to enrich uranium beyond a certain level.
In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. That's what the Ayatollah Khamenei says that he would do. He would use these weapons to wipe Israel off the map. Well, he's not going to. We're not going to let him.
For Prime Minister Netanyahu, the U.S. joining Israel in a war against Iran would essentially be a dream come true. But it's this idea specifically that appears to be what's driving that wedge within President Trump's political base here at home. Could the U.S., being in lockstep with Israel over Iran, be finally what cracks the MAGA movement?
It's difficult to tell, but I'll make a few observations. Donald Trump has survived so many political setbacks. He survived tapes of him saying lewd things. He survived indictments. He survived convictions. He survived election losses. So he's sort of like the ultimate political zombie. So with that in mind, he's banking on that. Hence, if you listen to his aides, what they're saying, and the message that's being sent out is trust Trump. So it's difficult to see whether his base or those elements of America First MAGA movement will abandon him, or whether they will rationalize his decision, or whether they'll say, we disagree with this, but now we're in it, so support the troop and support the president. It also depends on the outcome of the intervention, right? In an extremely, extremely unlikely, nearly impossible scenario, that this will be a clean intervention. The Americans would go, they would bomb the largest Iranian nuclear facility at Fordow. The regime would back down and the Iranian government would back down, and there would be roses and peace in the Middle East, which, again, let me stress, underline, underscore, is very unlikely. Trump will claim victory, it will boost his image, his base will remain intact. If an American intervention turns out to be another disaster, and it would lead to displacement crises and instability and shutting down large sectors of the global economy, because Iran has access to the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil flow. And Iranian lawmakers have suggested that it's not off the card that they could shut it down. So if that happens, and it turns out to be another Middle East disaster, then we could see Trump's base fragmenting. The only thing is that Trump is not running for re-election. So it's not going to affect his own political fortunes in any way going forward.
But it could impact his legacy. And that's
Absolutely.
something that's very important to him. If the United States joins Israel and strikes against Iran, what does this mean for that peacemaker image that he's been so eager to portray to make his legacy?
Yeah, I mean, in his inaugural speech, Trump said, "I want my legacy to be that of a unifier and a peacemaker." Now, before we talk about this legacy, let's note that a lot of people, especially on the Democratic side, were not buying this, I'm a peacemaker, I'm going to bring peace. During his first term, Trump got us very close to a war with Iran after he assassinated Iranian top general Qasem Soleimani in 2020. He ripped up the JCPOA, the 2015 nuclear agreement that made sure that the Iranian nuclear program is very capped to a minimal uranium enrichment and under stringent observation from the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA. And tensions flared up across the whole region. There were so many crises across the world during his first term. So a lot of people were skeptical to begin with of this image that he's trying to portray. If he goes to war with Iran, any semblance or anyone who believed it will be like, no, this guy is not a peacemaker and will not be a peacemaker. Because, Manny, it's not a joke. You know, we see the president, you know, tweeting or truthing, whatever you call posting on Truth Social, that we know where Khamenei is and we could get him, we could take him out. He's dealing with this in a casual way. But we're talking about extremely serious stuff here. Iran is a nation of 90 million people. If the regime disintegrates, if the governance system disintegrates and a country goes into chaos and civil war, it's going to make Iraq look like a walk in the park. We're talking about a refugee crisis in a million of people. We're talking about instability. We're talking about the rise of rogue groups that could be attacking Iran's neighbors. It's not something to be taken lightly. And if these things happen, we're being told now that Trump is the ultimate decider and he's responsible. He will be held responsible, and that will be his legacy ultimately.
Finally, Ali, while all this infighting plays out in Trump's world, it's people on the ground, it's civilians as usual that are caught in the middle that pay the price. Hundreds have been killed in Iran, many of them civilians. We're seeing images of people fleeing the Iranian capital, Tehran. People on edge, nervous, confused over the uncertainty of what comes next in neighboring countries, here in the United States as well. As someone who's from the region, who's covered this region extensively, what are you hearing from people on the ground about the mood amidst all this political noise?
Manny, during the intensified Israeli attacks in Lebanon late last year, I would interview Lebanese American advocates, and I was in Dearborn, Michigan, home to a large Lebanese community, to cover the elections. And when you ask people, how are you doing? You hear this sigh, this pause, and it tells you everything. That people are hurting, people are traumatized, people are seeing their homeland being destroyed. And I'm hearing exactly the same thing from Iranian Americans that I'm speaking to. But we cannot lose sight that in Gaza, people are being killed daily by the dozens, by the hundreds. And Musab Al-Toha, the Palestinian author who recently won a Pulitzer Prize, he said, we used to be collateral damage, now we are collateral news. So the bloodshed is ongoing. And it's become clear to the entire world that the blood of Arabs and Muslims is not as valuable. If it were, then we would not have seen this war continue in Gaza. A war that Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and UN experts and Holocaust scholars have described as a genocide. So it's the tragic reality that to many policymakers in the West, not just in the United States, the suffering of fellow human beings who do not look like them and who do not share their culture is an afterthought at best.
And that's The Take. If you're short on time but still want to catch the highlights, check out our YouTube Shorts. We post quick clips with the best moments from our episodes that you won't want to miss. It's a great way to stay connected, so check them out. And I'll see you tomorrow.